Okay, ready?
Yep.
Okay, so there's 3 power supplies. Okay, now this one right here goes down and is to there's the air for the air supply, and then for your UV, that's all plugged in, and then you've got your ozonator or the power supply that's given to the pump and other things. It's plugged in, and then you've got a plug that reaches over to here for this pump down here that's plugged in. So that's like all the power feeds going out. The only additional one that you see over here is for this return pump that goes back to your whole tank. And right in behind that outlet is also that little contactor piece that when this float kicks up or down, it tells that to close and let power come through this outlet. You don't see it, but it's like I said, it's behind the outlet in the cover because it's just a tiny little part.
Okay.
Now, the DC power supply, this is not anything being used anymore. I just unhooked it the other day, just don't even pay it any mind. All you have is the AC power coming into this, and then it supplies DC power to just a little fuse, and then from there to your float. And when that float kicks up or down, it's when it goes back up and tells that little switch in there to let your pump kick on. And that's it. So when the water rises, it closes the contact and it lets the pump run. Whenever the water drops, it drops out on the contact and the pump kicks off. So that's all that stuff is for at the end of the day. The water, the way that your water comes in is it comes in out of your tank right there at the bottom. And it goes into this pump here. And it goes back out of that pump into this pressure tank, and then from there on into the house or either to your hot water heater, you know, the water that you're wanting on your hot water, it goes over to it at that point and then on into your house.
Okay.
The water that comes back goes through these screens, so when you pop the lid, like, you know, every couple weeks or something, you can, you know, wash them screens and put them back in. And if you ever have a water flow issue, you know, like where the pump wants to kick on or off, you know, you've seen where me and you looked at that spring together. You can just adjust it, you know, just up or down, just a pinch, and that helps that time out when it needs to kick on, which it's already adjusted now. But if for some reason, you know, you like a long move or something and, you know, it got sloshed around or, you know.
You move the spring up and down? Like tighten it a little bit?
Yeah, just a little bit.
Or up it a little bit?
Well, it'd go up a little bit.
Because it's metal.
Right.
Okay.
Right, and it might have slid down, you know, during the drive, and you just wanting to make sure it's adjusted on the shaft to the up to the top, and it has a stop. You can see where the spring is, and
can we open it and see?
Oh yeah, I'll show you in just a second.
Okay.
And so when the water goes out of it, it goes up into this pump here through this little check valve, and that pump pushes that water through this 3-stage filter, and then through this UV array, and then back up into your tank through that hose right there. And at that point, all you've ever got to do is, you know, depending on how much water you use, is change these 3 filters here. And then when...
How often?
Well, I would do it once a week or every 2 weeks, depending on how much water you use. But now the pump that pushes the water into the house, it goes through this little filter up here. So you change that one whenever you change these 3, you do that one at the same time.
Okay, and where do I get those?
John can give you the link to where to order them, and then also he can send you some too. So.
Okay.
Now, the only thing that's we ain't went over is that little air pump right there in the back, that air pump. It oxygenates the water over here. It's forcing the air into, it's helping to pump that air from this on into there. And so whenever you're parked, that needs to be running all the time so that you don't get that bad smell in your water.
Okay. And where is that plugged in?
It's plugged in right here.
That's what we turned off to do the video?
Yeah. Plug that one up in there. Oh, the wires are off of it for a minute. Sorry. I've got to slide them back on. It'll go here in a minute.
Okay.
The 2 little DC wires, I got to slide them back on. But this hot water heater, you're going to want to cycle the water in it, you know. Now that you're living in it, it shouldn't get that smell in it, you know, because you're taking a shower every day and stuff like that, and using hot water, and it's not going to set and get that, that smell in it.
Egg smell.
Right.
Nasty smell.
So that's pretty much it. I mean, the only maintenance that you're ever going to have with this system, outside of just changing filters like normal, is if that float doesn't kick up and then go back down like it needs to, then of course your box could start to fill up and then back up into the house, which you'll know to come out here and to adjust that on that spring.
If that does that, I put it down or up? Up.
Yeah, because that way that lets the float rise. Because what's happening is that spring's trying to keep the float down. And so the water pressure is going to bring it up, and then it'll kick on and pull the pump on. But the reason the spring's there, so the float just doesn't bounce all the time with the water flow and doesn't go on, off, because that'll burn the pump out.
Okay.
So that's why that spring's there. It runs for a bit, and then it drops. Then it runs for a bit, then it drops. Now this pump here, if it ever does fail, say a plumber comes out and fixes it or whatever, all that they've got to do is unscrew right there and unscrew that one right there, and they just put the new pump in and plug it in, and that's it.
Okay.
The same thing with this. They can just unscrew that right there and then cut that PEX right there, or either unscrew it out of the check valve and put the new one right back in. So I mean, somewhere down the road, if that ever happens, you can I can get you the link to where to get this exact same pump, or you can use something different if you want to. I would stick with this pump on return because it does really good holding a vacuum.
And that's the new one?
Yeah, that's the new one. Well, they used it in the past. It's just new back with the system because they were using it to power the house, flow in and return, but it wouldn't do it on the flow. It would just do it on the return, and so I put it back in service for that because they never had a problem with that. And then we've got an even bigger pump to go in houses now, but because of the size restriction on your box, this style pump has to work in here because there's not a lot of space in your box for the longer one because it's so long. So that style pump has to stay in there like that. But the electrical stuff, the things that you never have to worry about, is there's a little tiny fuse in there. You can see where this wire goes at. See that little fuse? If for some reason the float won't work, and you check that fuse, if that fuse ain't, if it's popped, which it shouldn't never ever, but just saying that would be the only thing you'd ever have to check there. And the little relay that's behind there, it has 4 little clip pins on it, and if for some reason that it ever burn out and you don't hear it click on and off, then you just replace them 4 take that off, put the little clips right back in, and screw the cover back on, and that's it. And that's really all that you need to keep in mind outside of your filters, because otherwise there's just not that many moving parts of this anymore. It's just the float, these 2 pumps, and that switch. That's the only things that make decisions or work. Or
how much are the filters if I'm going to be replacing them weekly?
I think that,
because that's four filters weekly times how much money?
Okay, well, I think it was $100 for a whole year's worth of filters.
Good.
Doing once a month, so doing every 2 weeks, you're looking at probably $200 a year.
Okay.
Doing the filters.
2 weeks or 1 week, or it depends on how much you use.
It depends on if you're going to do lots and lots of washing cycles. Because now there's 2 ways that this system's going to slow down on water return. Is if something ever happened to the float, or when your filters are getting full, your system will back up because it can't go through the filters to get back to your tank.
So you need to clean the filters or replace. You can't clean those. You can just replace them.
I'm looking this week for some that can be cleaned.
Oh.
So that way to save some money for everybody.
Okay, but then would that be replaced on mine too, or?
Oh, the filters. I'll see that everybody gets a set so they know what they've got.
Okay. So then you'd send them to me and I would put them in. Would I take them out like this and then?
Right, and then just put the new ones in and screw it back in.
And those would be the cleanable ones?
Well, some of them probably won't be able to be cleanable because there's some that needs to be a cartridge where that it's got to catch the debris for good, the very, very fine particulate, and remove it for good. So there'll still be some, I'm sure, that we're all going to have to replace, just like in my system, it'll have to be replaceable.
Okay.
Like this one right here will most certainly have to be replaceable. The whole house filters, there's nothing like that I know of out there on the market right now, because I've had multiple of those home house filter things. But yeah, that's all. And now this right here, I'm gonna plug this back up now. These DC pump. Apologize, my allergies or whatever's bugging crap out of me this morning.
I felt like I was starting to get sick, but I think it was just me talking too much
I think it's
to all the people.
I think it's been out the rain and everything's got me. Now, if for some reason that pump ever kicks off,
Where'd you plug that in at?
right there on the little pins.
Got it.
If for some reason that the pump ever kicks off, sorry, let me adjust that one up just a little bit. For some reason, if that ever kicks off or something where you've been driving, you can just slide them right back on that pin, those two little pins, and it'll turn right back on. Because if you ever hear that thing quiet, it's because those wires have slid off the little pins. But like I said, it's because where you've been driving down the road or something. Once you get parked, you just put them on there. You'll be right in business.
Okay, should I check that before Matt leaves?
Oh no, I just check it whenever I get parked because you can tell. You'll be able to tell because, like I said, both them little pins ain't on the little pins that's on the pump. It'll be quiet. The moment you put them on there, it'll go right to working.
Okay.
Because it's DC powered, and that's really it in a nutshell. I mean, there's nothing more to it.
How do we pop open the box? Like,
Okay.
when can I pop it open?
Oh, you can open
When
it
can't
anytime. So here's
Even when the water's flowing?
No. You don't want to do it whenever
Any
you've
water's
ran
on.
the water. Whenever the pumps and stuff turn off, then it's fine. See that spring right there? It's adjusted against that tab. If it's ever slid down or anything, it's not going to fly.
Okay, how do I adjust it? Because I didn't understand.
See, like if that was spring and stuff ain't touching up there like it is right now, and it was down here, it needs to be moved up.
The spring.
Yeah, because see, once that's bumped up to that like that, it turns on, and that keeps that float from bouncing too. Because see, it'll keep it in place.
Okay, that's what I needed to know.
Yeah, and that's really it.
So then how do you clean the filters?
All right, so you take
them
those out, spray those out, leave them in a bucket of Clorox for a day, and then
No water use.
No, you can use your water through. It's okay. Just don't put no large particulate in there while you're cleaning them filters. And then when you get them back out of the bucket and wash and everything, just put them back in there, and that's it.
Okay.
Because these are reusable.
Okay. But they just come out easily?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, you just
And then
solder it.
if I just want to take some stuff off of there, do I need to take them out? Or can I just take the debris off the
Oh,
end?
you could just take some debris off.
Okay,
the
like
filter.
from the washer dryer.
Yeah.
Okay.
Stuff like that. Yeah.
All right. Thank you.
You're welcome.